welcome to the Soccer Coaching Podcast, brought to you in association with our friends at Soccer Coach Weekly, reflecting our shared ambition to help coaches have the most effective, enjoyable and successful coaching journey for them and their players. We hope you enjoyed this episode and thanks for listening. Paddy, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey Scott, how are you, mate? I'm good. Good to see you.
I'm good
Everything
too.
all right?
Yeah, look, well, it's been too long since Deep Dive episode 1, Deep Dive episode 2. It won't be as long to number 3. I'm going to commit that on air now. But it's just been crazy. I know that you've been busy too, and we've had other things, and trying to get diaries lined up has been trickier than we would have liked it to have been. But all good things are worth waiting for, and I'm sure this will be. I'm building it up now.
Oh, pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
Mate, good to see you again. I'm delighted to be back, and yeah, we'll get this going more regularly. People have been asking for it, so we'll get it done.
Well, that was my next point to say, look, I don't think, after the first episode that is available still obviously on the podcast and on YouTube, we've had such great feedback from it. It's so nice. Well, when I say we, I mean you, but we've had nice feedback from it as a collective, but certainly the comments you made and the points you raised. And I think what people liked about that episode was the fact that, we took something that was kind of elite level and spoke about it, but also we put it in a real world context for, with your coaching you under eights, once a week kind of thing. And we're not trying to be Pep Guardiola to everyone, but actually what parts can we take down if we want to look for excellence in our players and our coaching? How can we do that? And I think that's what you do so articulately well. And I get the opportunity to ask questions and listen to your wonderful words of wisdom, or at least just chat about stuff, right? And just, we don't always agree on things, but just having that conversation.
I think that's right, mate. And a lot of appear high-level concepts, and they are high-level concepts, when you break them down, are infinitely applicable. It's just, when you're looking at a TV screen, you're watching Man City, Arsenal, Barcelona, whatever, you haven't got that tactical camera view. You sometimes only see 12 players and it happens so quickly, and you're in the middle of a game. You might be watching it in the pub, your little boys running around. You don't always grasp those concepts. But once you can kind of break down a game for real, like a professional game, your coaching at grassroots level becomes infinitely easier, right? You can apply these concepts with 10-year-olds. I mean, playing out the back, you got to learn how to play at the back, because little Johnny can't kick it 50 yards at 9 or 10 years old. So you just take in things and maybe you simplify them, right? Or reduce the complexity, but you can, same concept.
Well, that was one of the things I think that came out from episode 1 that you made the point of directly, but also just how you presented the visuals was the work, like what goes on off the ball. And I know we know this, so we know it, but actually when you look at it in detail, not just know, but actually look at it, and you can see whether it's the movement, the run, the trigger, a hand gesture, whatever it may be. The stuff on the ball is almost, it's not unimportant, but it's like the off the ball stuff's as important. And once you as a coach can look at it, and I still struggle with this, I'll be honest with you, like I'm very much on the ball, or actually I'm not. I'm very much just one bit ahead of the ball, but I'm not everything else. So I'm a rubbish ref because I'm not looking at what's going on right now, but I'm just that a second ahead, but I'm not seeing anything else either. So I couldn't say what the team were doing. I'm just looking in and out, and I need to get better at that. And I think you highlighted that really well in episode 1 by the examples you gave us of what was going on, around the ball, not just on the ball.
I think that's common, mate. What you just said, you're one step ahead. I would say most people are on the ball or one step ahead, and I'm really envious of those coaches. You probably see them. You might be one yourself, Scott. That they'll stop watching the game sometimes. The ball's over here, and they'll turn around over here, and they'll start talking to their back four about what's about to come or what just happened. And it's the easiest thing in the world to concentrate just on the ball, because that is where the action is. But if you can think 1, 2, 3, 4 steps behind and ahead, you start to see the game. And actually, I can't remember if we talked about it last time. I'm not trying to shamelessly plug, but a little while ago, I wrote a book about what they call dynamic spaces. So you've got what they call the game center space, which is the ball carrier and maybe 1 or 2 defenders, the immediate defender, maybe the second defender. Then you've got what you call a direct corporation space, which would be like a bigger ring around that. And now that's got your second and third attackers and your second and third defenders. And then you've got the indirect corporation space, which is every other player. I would suggest that you're right, mate. Most coaches are only able to deal with that game center space or potentially the indirect corporation space. The really good ones can deal with all 3 of those at the same time.
which I guess is a talent and skill that you just have, like, and you have to practice it, right? You have to practice and get good at it. And yeah, like playing the
Yeah.
guitar or something. I imagine not that I can play the guitar, but I imagine, I might be able to learn a chord, but can I learn three chords? And I kind of mix the chords up a little bit, and that's what makes you, like, a more proficient coach. If
Yeah.
you can, the more things you can see at once and analyze and digest, the better. Yeah,
I mean, that's going from chord to chord. I mean, that's going from phase to phase, right? That's going from having the ball to losing the ball. Can you anticipate? Have we got rest defense ready to counter press? Blah, 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 blah. And I think, yeah, like you said, mate, you can't do it one season coaching your kids 10 times a season. You years and years and years, maybe being a former player helps. I wasn't a former player. So I've had to learn the hard way. And I think that's slowed me down. I mean, it really did. I'm
yeah,
46 now. And, if I'd have been a player, maybe I'd have got there like 10, 15 years quicker.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't. So, but no, you're right. You got to do more than just coach the on the ball player, because I think, is it Cruyff said, and statistics bear it out, that you only touch the ball for about 3 minutes in a 90-minute game. So it's everyone else around you that's helping dictate that play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, look, let's get into today's episode. That's okay with you. So, if you don't mind, just I know we've talked about this, but for those that listen or watching, and if you are listening an audio only, great, fantastic. We'll try and explain as much as we can, but we'll be lots of visuals today. We're using some clips, so you might better go on the YouTube to watch it, and watch the visual version of the YouTube, not the audio only one. But it's up to you. But the audio will still work. We'll make sure that we will describe things the best we can. But just talk us through what we're going to look at today. I know we're kind of almost do two things at once, aren't we? But if you can just explain that a little bit, and then we'll get into the video and we'll chat through it.
Of course, mate. So, I mean, a little bit of preamble. Arsenal's getting a lot of stick this year. There is some sort of narrative in the press, sort of anti-Arsenal. I don't know if that's because of years of a little bit of arrogance, unearned arrogance, maybe. I don't know, but they're sort of copping it at the moment. My son's a born-again Arsenal fan. His godfather got him into it, which is to his grandfather's disappointment, because he's a West Ham fan. But so I'm watching Arsenal a lot with the boy now, and obviously there was the Carabao Cup final last weekend against Man City. Man City were victorious, but there was a very interesting phenomena happened, maybe 5, 10 times. But one example, it was a really exaggerated example, was when Arsenal were playing out from their goalkeeper from a dead ball. I think it was a dead ball situation. I think it was a goal kick to start. We'll have a look at the clip and remember, but City were pressing with four, which in a flat line, which I haven't seen for commonly. Arsenal were building with a keeper and two centre backs, and it was just a standoff. There was a Mexican standoff for about 2 minutes at one point.
Who's going to blink first?
Yeah, who's going to blink first? Man City wouldn't bite, and Arsenal wouldn't, or Man City wouldn't jump, and Arsenal wouldn't play. They were kind of trying to call them on like a matador, right? And so I picked the longest example of that. It's about a 2 minute clip. We don't have to go through all of it, but where neither team, I think it's the second half, neither team would do their thing. And there's lots of little games within games and micro battles going on. I thought it might be good to explain that to the casual viewer who saw that and maybe didn't quite get what was going on. So you've got two
Perfect.
sides of the ball. You've got the playing out and you've got the pressing. So we can kind of have a little bit look at both.
Perfect. Well, look, Paddy, if it's okay with you, I'd like to address a couple of things. Being an Arsenal fan, please don't everyone switch off now who's not Arsenal fan. But I'm hearing the flack a little bit. I don't think it's as bad as the media's making out. Personally, I certainly haven't experienced it myself. We're no more than you do normally, and obviously the Spurs fans are quite quiet at the moment, so that's okay. Am I unfair to think this? This is the broader picture now. So obviously, for many seasons, Arsenal was accused of being a bit soft and whatever else, and they probably were a little bit. Couldn't score from set pieces, couldn't defend set pieces. Now, and I don't think that's why they score from set pieces. Now, actually, the numbers don't suggest they are the best team scoring set pieces. They're up there. They score a lot of goals, but actually, the ratio of goals scored to set pieces earned, that's quite good. But Newcastle think have more set pieces or whatever else, but that's almost by the by. But what I noticed over the last couple of seasons is obviously as Arsenal improves year on year, and they've improved under Arteta, I think, and that's a credit to Arteta. They've got better. We're competing better than we were before. Arguably, other teams have gone backwards as well, and to some extent, and some transitions going on, but we have got a bit better. But what we got was more teams sitting back in a low block against us, and I mean in a deep low block. So it might be 5-4-1, it might be 5-5, but sitting back. So and giving us the width and not giving us through the middle because that's where we used to pin balls around a little bit, which again, that's how you do. So by definition, if a team's going to sit in a low block and is going to give you the width. You're less likely to be able to get balls into the box and get goals, but you're going to get corners. Not even if you're trying to get corners, you're going to get corners because actually that's where they're making you play to those spaces. So and I could be completely wrong here, but if I was the Arsenal coach in that situation, I'll be thinking, well, look, our corner ratio has gone from probably 7 a game to 15 a game. Can we get, we're going to get more goals anyway, but can we work on that to make it a bit of a weapon now to almost discourage teams to get corners away for us, almost make it play a different way? So I don't believe that, this is necessarily a bad thing or a conscious choice by Arsenal to be more of a direct, set piece kind of boring Arsenal kind of style, although I'm okay with that. I think it's a consequence of how the game's evolved. And actually, surely it's a smart tactic. But maybe I've got my red Arsenal rose tinted goggles on here. I'm just seeing what I want to see. But to me, it just makes sense that you're going to have that. That should be a weapon. Now, you'd be crazy if not a weapon. And I think they should score more free goals because actually, when teams start giving you corners, then you can play in other areas of the pitch and maybe through the middle. Am I getting that wrong? I've got to get off my chest first, Paddy. There you go. But do you think am I
Well,
digging for this because I'm an Arsenal fan, or is there something in it? You can be
well,
honest. I know you will be.
I will be honest. Let's maybe for the next show, let's ahead of time pull up some stats on that because quite often, having worked in analysis myself, quite often the feeling of something is not backed up by the statistics. So you might say Arsenal's just a set piece team now, and it might be because they're more successful at set pieces. But I would hate to like misspeak on a subject. But so to your question, like if the middle's being blocked up and you're getting forced wide, you're more likely to get throw-ins near the goal line, corners near the goal line, free kicks from around the top of the box. Yeah, potentially. I do know that set pieces now are massive in the Premier League. So I actually didn't tell you this, Scott. So this isn't a setup, is it? But I just started in January doing a set piece master's degree with a place called Sports Data Campus, which is based in Spain, out of Murcia, sort of Catholic University, I think is the university that backs the qualification. And the guy running it is Austin McPhee, who is Aston Villa's set piece coach now. Obviously, Villa, I don't think he'd mind me saying, I mean, he's not going to watch this, but are punching above their weight generally this season. And a lot of that is down to their set piece expertise that Austin has brought in. So set piece, I think when he said, I think he told me the other day when he came into Villa, there was 5 set piece coaches in the Premier League. I don't want to misspeak, but I think that's what he said. I think he said now basically every Premier League team has one. So set pieces are definitely on the rise. But when you look at Arteta and his philosophical heritage, I mean, I don't think he played long at Barca. I think he's only Barca B, but he's come through that system. He's learned his trade under Pep, who is Mr. Positional Play. I just think he's very pragmatic. He understands that, and again, not trying to upset any Arsenal fans. I think what Arsenal have done this year is unbelievable. And I've been telling my best mate, so Charlie's I say stepfather, he hasn't got a stepfather, godfather is an
There's a revelation on the podcast.
I know, you heard it here. He's a lifelong Arsenal fan, season ticket holder, right? Really like Mr. Arsenal, not just a modern Johnny come lately, like probably you could call me now.
Yeah.
And he was unsure about Arteta probably as recently as 2 years ago. And I just knew because of his background, because of what he'd done, it was a building phase for Arsenal. But I think what I trust the process, right? And I really do believe that with Arteta. And I think you're seeing the fruits of that this season. But if you're honest, if you were to do a player for player analysis across the squad, let's say, what is it now, 23-ish players, and you were to compare that squad to Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man
Bayern
City,
Munich.
Bayern Munich, like would any Arsenal players get into a world or a Europe 11? I don't know.
Maybe a couple, right? Maybe a couple might just get it on whatever reason. But yeah, I
Right.
totally agree. Who would get in their teams? Who would they drop out of their teams and take from Arsenal to put in that position for position? And I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think, yeah, I couldn't. I think there's still a long way. I think the Premier League isn't a very exciting league to watch because it's very fast forward football. I don't think it's the best league technically. I don't think it's the best league. They're always tactically. Do you know what I mean? It's like usually 100 miles an hour football, very physical. I know the game slows down. I mean, and Man City Arsenal game is very slow by definition because they're possession-based teams. But it isn't like and it's an honest league. And it's in the sense that both teams want to win games, and
Yeah.
they don't. But I don't necessarily think it's the best footballing league. Like if you're looking at pure football point of view, and like you say, I think if you look at Bayern and you look at Madrid and look at PSG, um, you know, I don't know that they would take me Arsenal players to switch around one or two, maybe. I don't know. They wouldn't certainly be half the squad, would it?
Well, you just mentioned PSG as well. I mean, if you're talking about wingers, if you say, I mean, Saka's captain at the moment, England player, probably the most. Oh, but I say he's the biggest face at Arsenal potentially. If you
Him
compare
or
him to
Rice,
his,
probably, isn't it? Him or Rice would be the two that would kind of
oh
get
mate,
yeah.
the mate I was telling you about, Charlie's godfather, and another best mate of mine. We're in this little chat group, and they love Rice. They push Rice down my throat, not literally every week. And like, if you took him out of that team, if you only watched the Prem, you might be forgiven for thinking Rice is a world class midfielder. But if you go and look at Barcelona's middle three, if you look at Pedri, and I don't even know what his stats are compared to Rice, but you just have to watch the game. Rice is Rice is in the Stone Age, mate, compared to Pedri, and I think Rice is a great player. But
Yeah.
look at some of the English midfielders we've ever had. Scholes. If you ever talk to Zidane, Xavi, and you talk to them about the best,
Paul Scholes,
they say Paul Scholes.
best player they played against. Yep,
You've
yep.
got Gerard Lampard. I mean, that's a bygone era, but he might be one of the best English midfielders at the moment. But world class, God, I don't think he'd get into any of the big. Well, that's I don't think you would put anyone out of their spot at Barcelona. And I was about to talk about Rashford now. Rashford's not getting a lot of time at Barca at the moment, but apparently he's training brilliantly. And when he plays very well. I think his stats wipe Saka's off the map at the moment. I mean, Saka got a goal very recently, but I don't think he'd scored since Christmas, was it, or
Yeah.
something, or 4 goals in the
I think
Prem?
an assist for it had been like an assist had been like months, if
That
not a year or something. It was ridiculous. There was a long time. You
right?
don't realise, do you? I won't talk about Saka. I've got my own views on that as well. I'm probably more aligned to look. These are all good. These are elite football players, and they work super hard, and they're great, and whatever else. I think it's just the media narrative sometimes gets carried away, doesn't it? And it's all part of the Premier League propaganda and stuff, And I think when we calm down and watch it, like you say, like Rice looks like a top bloke. He's a good hard-working player. I love him in the Arsenal team. But you know what? He probably wouldn't get signed by Madrid. He probably and you got to say, well, there's reasons for that, and actually he could do is scoring a few more goals because Gerrard used to, and Scholes used to, and Lampard used to, and stuff. But but he's box to box, but so was Gerrard. He would be on there. Like I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know that we build him up, don't we? And Madueke comes in and plays in the right for Arsenal, and I think for Saka that's a great wake up call because actually he's come in and you know what I would be torn who to start if I was like I'm not I certainly Saka he's been wonderful and he's a young kid and he's doing great stuff, but Madueke's coming in and just said like well I can do some stuff here as well, So with this whole world class tag that people get put on with, I think you've got to be careful how to get that branded around because you got to do I think to be world class you've got to be consistently brilliant for a period of time, right? And there ain't that many players who do
yeah.
that season in season out, right? Some average players have had good years, haven't they, and disappeared off, So
Saka
I
is
don't want to make it an
class, mate.
Arsenal one. That's
No,
what's
you're
that?
fine. It's Saka's class. I think it's relevant with Arsenal being top of the table for the whole season, pretty much. I think it's interesting, but Saka is not going to oust any of those top Mbappe. I mean, he wouldn't Dembele. I don't think he'd take any of their starting spots. So I know England have done well in the last couple of tournaments, but they've had very good routes to the finals and whatnot.
And being pragmatic. About your point, they played a brand of football that's kind of been under Southgate. I think what he was very good at was getting the organisation right, getting it all the little bits right. Great set piece routines, be organised, be hard to beat, and just
Mm,
win your games. And I think they played to their strengths and that worked,
yeah,
right? But again, it wasn't beautiful football, was it? You haven't played, and I'm okay with that, by the way. Again, know the cards you've got and play them accordingly. But it wasn't a bit like Arteta, be pragmatic and then work with what you've got and be realistic about that. We're not Man City, are we? Like, who is? You have that machine behind you just to build to win everything.
that's
Like,
it.
who's Man City?
there is a little bit of talk. I watched the presentation from I forget the guy's name now. Crikey, it's the someone on the Arsenal technical setup, and they talk about they do total defending now. So like maybe back in the day, you wouldn't be bringing a winger, not back in the day, but in recent time when you talk about like an attacking brand, especially for a coach that kind of comes from that Barcelona lineage, the wingers would be freer.
Yep.
And at the moment, what they're saying is whenever a fullback is engaging an opposition winger, they want their winger to track back. And so it's like a 2v or 1v2 defensively, which then gives Saka a lower starting position when they do transition and win the ball. So rather than carrying the ball 25 yards from top, over the halfway line, he's now
Yep.
having to bring it from in his own half. And that is obviously a bigger challenge because you've got maybe an extra line of defensive cover you've got to beat. You're now a little bit more tired when you
Starting
get
from
to
deeper,
dynamic.
more tired, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so who knows? But great player nonetheless.
Yeah, and maybe not even singling out Saka individually, but I think to be a world class player, you've got to do it consistently. But also, you probably need a few different tricks. You've got to be either exceptional at one thing, haven't you? Like exceptional, like I am Robin. Like you know what he was going to do every time he did it, but he was so good at doing it that no one could defend against him. Like he literally had
Yeah,
like I'm not saying one shoot, he had that cut back there was unbelievable. But I think unless you've got that
right.
exceptional world class skill that beats like a player every time you do it, you need to have two or three things in your locker. And I think there's one or two players maybe that could do with. I mean, who am I to talk? But it just feels like if you become predictable, then some teams learn you out. Like the analysts are doing their job right. They're saying what he's going to do every time. If you do the same thing every time, and then suddenly you don't have that same impact, and you've got to add something else to your armory
100%.
for the next seat them guessing. And as a coach, I think as well comes out, I think in a minute with the clip you're going to show, I always think about coaches, you've got something different, right? You've got to have a surprise in there at some point, just to keep people guessing. And I think that the problem with the Arsenal game and Man City game was where Arteta's got it right against Pep over the last few seasons is he's had a little surprise, a little something there that he's changed. He went man
Mm-hmm.
for man in one game against Man City. He did a few things, and I think in this game there was no surprise by Arsenal for Arteta and for Pep and Man City. But Pep had the surprise in doing that kind of almost like a 4-2-4 out possession, didn't he? Like he
Yeah,
did that, and it was like, and we didn't know what to do. We were like, hold on, what's going on here? So I think on that basis, if we just Arsenal way too long, sorry about that, but we can maybe share your clip and or do you want me to do it? I don't know who's the best there, or and we can do that, and then we
well,
can talk through it.
you may
Is it
share
better
my
for me
screen.
to share it or better for you?
It's
Yeah,
probably
is that
better if I
okay?
have
Have you got
control
permission
of the
to?
video so I can pause it and all that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
So you might have to just enable my screen share. I think at the moment it says
we
it's
do that for you,
disabled.
mate.
You
You can
can
just
edit this bit nice and with your fancy editing stuff.
advance. I'm almost there. Share. There we go. There we go. That should. I think it's coming through, but now you should be able to
Yep. Entire
share when you're ready.
screen. Yep.
Okay.
Let's have a look
So
now.
this is a
So
clip,
can
and
you?
thank you for bringing this one up. Of all the clips you could have found, you found the one from the Arsenal defeat in the Carabao Cup Final last weekend against Man City. So thank you for that one, Paddy. I'm grateful to be watching this again. I didn't get enough the first time round of, of watching Arsenal struggle, so we can analyse it in detail now.
Yeah. Can you see it all right, Scott? Yeah.
Yeah, it's come on perfectly. Yeah, can see that. Yeah. So
Look,
if you don't mind, can you just set the scene?
all
Obviously,
right.
not everyone will be able to see the visuals. So if you don't mind, just setting the scene of what we're
Yeah,
looking at, maybe where it is in the game and stuff, and just as in minutes, is it second half? I think it might be. But whatever,
100%. Yeah.
better. That's okay.
Yeah. So I've made my mouse nice and big and pink for everyone at home so they can see what I'm highlighting as well. But so this is from the Carabao Cup final last weekend, and both teams did something unusual. And I don't know if they both knew they were going to do the other thing or it just worked out to be like a perfect storm. But essentially, we've got a situation where Arsenal are building out in their initiation phase, their build out phase from Kepa. Wasn't Kepa, sorry, it was the backup keeper. What's his name? I forget his name. But no, that is Kepa, isn't it?
For
And
Arsenal,
yeah,
it was
forgot his
Kepa,
name
wasn't it?
now.
For Arsenal,
It was Kepa. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Um,
for Arsenal.
Arsenal are playing in a way where they're really kind of calling on the press and they're trying to provoke. a jumping player or two. And then what happens is when, let's say it's Haaland, when Haaland jumps, the Arsenal players behind him move in a certain way, occupy certain spaces, try and open up that third man connection, sort of a la De Zerbi, build out back Brighton kind of play. But that didn't happen. And Arsenal break the press, but that didn't happen. What City did instead was great. They posted 4 up in a flat line, and they shifted and screened to prevent and deny any sort of central access to the midfield line behind them. And they didn't jump, they didn't bite at all. So you've got multiple points in the game where you've got this kind of standoff where neither team's giving up, neither team blinks, as you said earlier. And that's kind of the setting for this video.
Perfect. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic.
All right, so let's go into it. So I'll play it and rewind it, right? Because I've got the ability to do that, and we can come back and cover it.
Yeah.
But Scott, jump in if you see anything you want to discuss. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go on about it for a little bit.
Yep. Perfect.
All right. So here we've got the ball's been dropped back, right? You can see Arsenal playing with a back 4 standard there, right? We've got fullback, centre back, other fullback, and Kepa there. Pressure coming up. You see this a lot now. I'm not saying Barcelona started it, but it's very popular with Hansi Flick, and you see it a lot now where you get this shaped press where what they're desperately trying to do is prevent this centre back breaking the pressure and playing to the fullback. So you get this big exaggerated looping run like this now, very common. You get these kind of diamond presses where the front player isn't really trying to win it. The front player is just making sure that play becomes sort of predictable and compartmentalized over one side of the field, and this player can't break the press and get out here. And you've got the Man City player doing that well and forces the ball back to the goalkeeper. Now, you notice that the Arsenal centre-backs drop deep into the box, right? Gives them an element of control. Goalkeeper's got the ball. He's centrally positioned. Fullbacks, nice amount of height. Lots of space, right? Lots of space to receive the ball in on both flanks. And in Arsenal, often it's a 4-1 or a 4-2 shape. They've gone for 2 pivots here, with this player also kind of able to come in and out. 2 pivots behind this line of 4 pressing Man City players. And what we see is there. So if we're talking about, let me get rid of that for a second. If we're talking about session design, Scott, and you're trying to work on this exact thing, if you've got 11 players available to you, you can do this, right? So you've got a positional play game there. You're playing in about, a third of the field, maybe just bigger than a quarter of the field. You've got 2 lines of offensive players, and you've got 1 line of defending players. The Man City players are in a flat 4 press there. They're somewhere in the region of within the width of the penalty area. That's how wide they are. So 4 players in that area is quite compact. But what you notice is none of them are pressing at all. So let's have a quick look at what that does to Arsenal as we roll that forward. So simple sideways pass, still no press from City. But what I thought was really interesting to observe here is no one's being pressed, right? He's got no pressure on him. And this player here has a decent amount of space to receive. But the pressing player here, so Pep Guardiola's, what would you call this, sort of right wing at the moment, is in a really nice position. I really enjoyed this as a analyst nerd or whatever you might say, Scott. He's not gone and sat right on top of the guy over here, because that would give a sort of central access point to probably an Arsenal player drop in from here, right, that we can't see. It's not on screen. But he can't play that pass either, because he's kind of taken this intermediate position where he could cut that off and intercept it, and you end up with a 1v1 in transition. So his positioning here is really clever. You then look at the other 3 Man City players. So this player here was a bit wider and a bit higher. He's just tucked in a touch. But these two players here are key. They are not allowing central access to these two Arsenal midfielders at all. Right? So it's not man for man with him. It's not man for man with him. But these two are preventing the midfielders behind them receiving any kind of pass.
It's more of a
So what do
screening
Arsenal?
thing, isn't it? They're doing the screening
Yeah,
thing rather than right. They're just literally making a wall there and just screen like you might do like a little practice in the training session where you just screen the through balls.
yeah. And if you watch, I mean, there's lots of things going on, right? I think we did this last time. It was a 30-second clip, but we talked about it for an hour. If you watch all the micro battles, all the mini games within games, all the scanning, everyone, I, I, I think Arsenal were unlucky here, but preparation favours luck, I think. And Pep is so prepared. You watch his players, this front four know in every pass that Arsenal make what they're supposed to do. You just look at them scanning around and who they're looking at. They don't break a sweat. Nothing here is complicated,
Paddy,
but
can
it
I
is a
jump in just
lot.
quickly? Can I
Yeah.
jump in just quickly? So I don't get to go back too far. On that point, I think he makes a really good point. Can you just go back maybe just play the clip again, just back maybe 10 seconds or so? I just want to watch. So I think it's Semenyo on the ball, isn't it? So it's Semenyo's pressing. I mean, so if you go back a little bit where we were before it goes, keep going back almost to the beginning of the clip. Um, and I just want what's Semenyo. So when Gabby plays the ball back to Kepa, look at him. Look, he literally stops, checks his shoulder, and he stops and goes backwards rather than
Yeah.
forwards. Now, look, he stops now. Look, he's not going, and he looks behind him and just and goes back and against that four. And I think Arsenal look confused by that because in most situations you would see the front player keep following the pressure onto the goalkeeper, make him play out the other side, but they just stop and look, he's sitting back and he's like, so they've obviously, well, obviously preparation. They've obviously so prepared it. But I think it surprised Arsenal because ideally there, Semenyo goes and presses Kepa. Kepa either goes out and plays a predictable pass to the right and goes out further to the right, or he does a fancy one back into Gabby and the Gabby plays out on the left hand side, doesn't he? That's what you kind of try and do in that situation. But the minute he just doesn't even go one step further, as soon as the ball goes back to keeper, he doesn't get sucked into it. He just goes straight back into that line of four. And I haven't seen that. I've never seen City do it, but like it was obviously something that they obviously they prepare it because we can see it. But it's just, I think it's fascinating. And he was that well drilled that not for 1 second did he kind of almost go. He was like, no, I know what I've got to do now. And then, like you say, he's covering essentially three players, but certainly the two out balls on that left hand side for Arsenal. I just thought it was fascinating to watch that because I've not seen that before. Where he's not like, it's not like, oh, I can't get it, so I'm not going to bother doing it. Because he probably could have chased that ball down and put pressure on Kepa quite easily. But he just, no, my job is to go and step back here now and just be part of the four, which I just
Yeah. I,
you're going to see more, I'm sure now. But just yeah, it was good to see that.
100%. I think you said you might do a funny one out to the left, and that's that is one of the and it did happen in other clips in the game. They didn't quite execute this as well as this particular clip, and the goalkeeper sort of chipped it a little bit and got the left centre back on the ball, and he was allowed to carry out. But you're right, the discipline, and if you look throughout this whole clip, and maybe we can share this with the viewers as well. Maybe we can tag it on. I don't know how it works. Maybe you can tag it onto your post or something, Scott. But
Yeah,
if you watch this over and over, you see the front four. You see all the little scans they make. They're always aware of where each other are, where the ball is, and where the Arsenal players behind them are. And not one time does it look like there's an easy, considering how close they are to Arsenal's goal, an easy out ball because of their coordinated movements. It's really nice and really interesting to watch.
absolutely. Okay, let's keep
Uh,
playing it then.
yeah. So ball comes over to the left centre back now, and then there's the movement you just talked about, right? He shapes his press, but look at that, he just stops and he's looking to his left. There's no easy pass. Centre back's on the ball. He tries to do a couple of what I call false touches, false dribbles to get someone to bite, not having it. And if you look at the little illustration I've put here, there's no passing lanes to any Arsenal player available other than a sideways pass to the other centre back or a sort of backwards pass to the goalkeeper. Even the left fullback, the number 5 that's highlighted, that's a risky pass. I mean, even if as he shapes to play that, he's going to give the City player another couple of yards to edge across, and he'll intercept it. Right, that might look like a pass. It's not on, right? And the Arsenal centre back knows that, right? And that's why he's kind of put his foot on the ball and he's trying to engage some jumping players and pull some pressure towards him, but it's just not happening at the moment.
And Paddy, on that one, and I could be wrong here, but I would imagine this is the kind of detail that the players work at. Obviously, Gary's left-footed, so it's he can't pass his right foot, of course, right foot, but he's left foot predominantly. So with his body position now currently, there's no way he's looking to pass to Hincapié on the left hand side, is there? Like he's got it on his left foot, he's facing the other way almost, like the angle of his body. So like that pass, I imagine the minute if Gabby had shaped the pass this way, well, either with his right or his left, I think you'd see Simeone kind of close that option off anyway for him. And it's that's the attention to detail these players are having right now, aren't they? They're not just looking roughly where the player or the ball is, they're looking at what foot's he got it on, what's his body shape like at the moment, where he might go to, and that allows someone to be a bit more in like maybe in that half space rather than a bit further wider to cover that pass because he hasn't got to because Gabriel's not looking. There's no way he's playing that pass from that position there. No way. Do you think that's fair to say, or do you think I'm looking too much into it?
No, I do. I actually saw something just as I was waiting for you to get on the call, Scott. I was just messing around on Twitter and I saw someone, I don't follow them, they don't follow me, just something that popped up. They talked about the what did they say? The PowerPoint or the spreadsheet coaches are all out in force to support Rosinha. Well, there's a PowerPoint or spreadsheet, and the implication was the sort of stuff you and I are talking about now. Oh, that's not football. It might not be football at U10, right? You might not be too worried about the kid with the left foot versus the right foot, maybe, right? But that is very much football. That is very much what analysts are paid to do. He can't play that pass, which helps inform Semenyo. Hey, you can pinch in 2 yards closer than going out to protect a pass from a right-footed player, or vice versa. Those 2 yards might mean the difference between that central option being open and closed. So it was a derogatory comment, right? PowerPoint coaches, spreadsheet coaches, whatever you want to call it, sort of taking the swipe at how football is not pure anymore. Right? It's not all about the streets and it's not about a Maradona. I get that. It isn't. It's now a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the guy's assertion is absolutely right. But, I think you have to embrace it or get left behind. So what you just said there,
Yeah.
Scott, is 1,000% right. And he would have been informed by that by his analytical staff before during the week before he ever stepped foot
Yeah.
on that field. They would have practiced it. They probably would have put someone in who is left-footed or made them play with their left foot. They would have probably set up in a 7v4 positional game, just like we talked about at the beginning of the clip. And that's how they managed to execute this small but very important part of the game so well.
And also on that point, we've got to remember Semenyo's he's an attacking player. He's not a defender. So natural instinct is to go and press it and chase. And again, they're professional football players, so I get it. And maybe he's played lots of the back through his academy days and whatever else. But surely by definition, attacking player, you're going to get and be involved. So you kind of find natural instincts to kind of sit back and wait and be patient. And I think credit where credit's due. Again, I don't want to stop people from doing a bit here, but I'm sure I remember on the commentary in where we were, I think I can't remember on ITV or Sky Sports, but the commentators were slating Arsenal for playing out too slowly and not rushing and getting through. And I was saying, no, slow it down. They've got to blink first. If we go too early, we're going to make mistakes. Let them. That's what they want you to do is lose patience and rush out a little bit. And I think sometimes people don't get the fact that football has changed, and you've got to play what's in front of you, and you've got to play the circumstances, what's in front of you. Because if you do what the other team want you to, they will do what they want you to do, then you're probably going to end up, making a mistake. And it was frustrating to listen to because I was thinking, no, you're literally telling them, you're telling them what City want them to go and do. Or actually, if they be patient, then it's not your job to go and win their football game in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. It's up to both teams want to attack. If they want to sit back, then fair enough. Let the Man City fans get frustrated first and see what happens before the Arsenal fans do. Just because you've got possession of the ball doesn't mean you've got to go forward every time with it. But I think that part of the narrative here and just that whole kind of patience and attention to detail and having that game plan, which again I'm sure will play out as you keep playing the clip. And I will stop talking now, Paddy. Sorry.
Oh, please don't, mate, because I'm not giving any color commentary here. That's what you do. I'm just showing a clip, and the questions you're asking are great. And something you just said a second ago about playing your way. I don't want to put wrong words in your mouth, but playing your way and not playing the way of the opposition. You might say there's a pre-Pep football and there's a post-Pep football, and I think Pep brought things like game models to the fore and cultures and philosophies of playing. Before him, it was very common to have the reserves run out during the week and play the way that your opposition on a Sunday would play. That's not as much the case anymore, because now it's like, well, no, let's play the way we want to play. Let's impose our will on the opposition and we're flexible, we're adaptable, but we are trying to play our way. And I think probably no one does that more than Pep, actually. But that's a trend in football as well. Like Arsenal aren't backing down, City aren't backing down. It's not, oh, you're pressing high, oh, we'll bypass you all the time. It's no, we're going to try and draw you in and play through you. And I think you're seeing that here. Both teams are refusing to back down.
Yeah.
And I think you play how you train. So they obviously train this way. All right. So if we roll this forward a little bit now. So if you watch, and I'll scrub this back and forth. If you watch now,
Do you think Arsenal confused, Paddy, at this point? I got the sense they didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't think they had a plan for this. I don't know what you think about it. It just looked like we didn't have an answer.
they look a touch lost, don't they?
Yeah, I think they were surprised. And it's 4-2-4 our position. I never seen it before. I was like, wow, that's weird. But I mean, I would have probably just gone a bit longer. like you say, they went into their principles. But I think Arsenal, I think Pep had the twist here. He played a card, and Arteta wasn't ready for it, and almost waited to the second half to do it. I think as well. I don't remember seeing as much of this in the first half when Arsenal were quite good. Was this a half-time change, maybe, if I remember rightly? And we didn't have an answer for it. But unless you
Yeah.
see it differently.
No, I don't. To be honest, I haven't sat and thought in great detail about the whole game. I just thought this was interesting, and I think if you say that every area of the field has a battle of some type, I think you have to say City won. I know they won the game anyway, but I think City won this particular battle. I mean,
Hands down,
I
absolutely.
don't think Arsenal really ever unbalanced this setup for
Yeah,
City enough to capitalize on it and accelerate play through. And that's not to say they didn't do it on occasion, but consistently throughout this game, I think City had the better of them in this little battle.
yeah.
And there's micro points we can analyze. Depends how much time you got, Scott. But if you look at the Arsenal players now, let's roll it forward. See if there's no. There you go. There you go. So this player here, it's the first Arsenal player that has
So
sort
that
of just
Saka comes in a little bit, comes in a little bit, drops into that like pocket, like that
yeah.
space,
That I
doesn't he,
think
just to see if he can make something happen.
And I
Yeah,
think you have to have, and he's right. Obviously, you want them to start high, and you want City to be drawn back as far as they'll allow Arsenal to take them. But then you do need that quick show at the right moment, and maybe this was the right moment. Maybe there is a small bit of daylight between those two, but I mean, it wasn't found. So was it that well rehearsed? Was it that well thought out? Did the four did Arsenal during the week practice against the three? Maybe they can't have known City were going to do this with the four. I don't think so.
mm,
Maybe the fourth person really that you're talking about that Pep Guardiola always has a little something, doesn't he?
yeah,
Always some kind of innovation. Maybe that was just enough to get in their head. It's like, oh crikey, there's four instead of three. That
yeah.
makes a 10-yard space a 7-yard space. Can I thread that ball every time without giving? Maybe not.
Bit of doubt
Um,
now, a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of confusion. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So let's go back a little bit just to if we roll it from this, and I'll shut up for a second, you'll just see each of the City players now pass off, right? So we had Semenyo on this player and this player. Watch as the ball rolls a little bit, you see they seamlessly hand one off to the other, and they just shift now like that. So you can see he's here,
Yeah. Look at the talking,
here.
the communication, hand signals, gestures. Yeah. They're not even
suggest.
working, are they? They're not even working. So yeah, they're not having to do anything. Cover no yards, just shuffle a little bit. They're saving energy, aren't they? Just like it's so smart. They're not burning energy. They're not
Oh,
chasing a ball around the pitch. They're just managing spaces.
and if you look, Arsenal now have their little solution that they came up with was a rotation. I don't know that in this particular scenario it affected anything because I think all it does is it with this player dropping in,
So Rice goes, then he from the sixth, try and go in centre position. Then he's try and drag Semenyo with him, I think, doesn't he?
right, but it doesn't really work because City are very disciplined. So all it's really done is given a sideways option in a space that was only 10 yards to his left anyway.
Yeah.
This player here comes up into the sort of what you might call a left fullback position, but a chipped ball is in the air for a little bit of time and it's traveling. This player can jump and get that, and it's ignored. So if we watch it, it's kind of completely ignored by the ball carrier because it isn't offering a solution. If we just roll it forward, we'll see it in a sec. There,
Like a car. And Rice tells him to go. Rice giving the key and saying, "Yeah, I'll come in. There you go."
yeah. And then watch the menu. He's just looking, but he's like, and he's pointing. You cover, and then they re-establish. Still got the line of four.
Yep, they're not in broke, have
Now,
they? They don't care. Go where you
no,
want to go. Go that side as many as you want. We're not. It doesn't make a difference. We're going to hold
right.
this for us and play through us. Yeah.
And look what else it's done, Scott. It's taken a midfielder out. So you might say you've done a straight swap in terms of numbers, but the player nearest us, the Arsenal player, the left, who is now the left back in yellow boots, he is not an option. So all
Yep.
you've done is you've taken Rice out of midfield behind the press where you could have found him and put him next to you. Now you're playing instead of a line of two, you've got a line of three with two fullbacks. So you've lost a man in midfield, which is not good. Not
No.
good for penetration. And the Arsenal player, I think you said it was Saka. Your eyesight's better than mine. He's dropped and he's staying,
Yep.
right? But he's being tracked and he's being screened. So he's not an option either. So now
Yep.
what you've done is you might have replaced that midfielder that you lost in Rice with Saka, but now your front line is a player down. So you've got no midfield option. And you've also got one player less if you go direct now to compete for it or win the second ball. I think that's a tactical mistake. Now, Arteta is a genius, mate. He's genius on many levels, but I think I can spot that. Maybe he spotted it after the fact, right? Maybe beforehand it sounded good, but before City came up with a four press, maybe it was a three he had in his head. Maybe that works with a three press. There's one less player blocking those central passing lanes, but with a four, did Arsenal adapt? And I think you might have to say no.
No. Yeah, well, absolutely. I think they just looked lost and confused and didn't know what to do. It was fascinating to watch. Frustrating, obviously, but fascinating to watch. And maybe we'll come on to this, Paddy. But maybe we'll come on to the Arsenal thing. What obviously, we're not Arteta, and like you say, let's bring credit where credit's due. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we've had
Yeah,
days to think about this. But what I didn't get was like you've either got to be patient and just wait for one of them to break that four, which they're probably not going to do. One to come out, and then your triggers to go then, or just go long and put it in and just see what happens. Even if you just get a throw in halfway out, and they've got, and then almost give possession back to City. Because I think sometimes when you play against City, you're both not having the ball. You're better off not having it for a little bit and then seeing what happens. Just at times, rather than having your own ball in your own third, because that's hard to play around them. But what would you, and maybe if you want to answer this question later on, you can do, but what might you, if you had done differently to get through this situation, if you were Arteta?
mate, I'll give you a contrite answer, but Pep and Arteta are on such a different level. They've got 1,000 things, 1,000 computations going at one point. This might have been part of a bigger game plan that just simply didn't come off on the day. I don't know, mate, but
Hard to
for
know,
me,
isn't it? Yeah.
I might play a little bit more direct. I might alternate between the two to maybe discourage that four press and get City to relinquish it and go back to a three or maybe a diamond press, which gives you a bit more width, right? They still might want four players, but instead of a flat line, they might go into that diamond that Barca have been using under Flick recently. But I think Spanish coaches are so principle driven; they'd almost like rather die than
Yeah.
change their way of
Yeah.
playing. But I don't think playing direct, if it's a solution, is changing your way
No.
because you've said my game is coming out short out the back. So City have said, okay, we're going to stop that. well, your next evolution is okay. Well, then I'm going to bypass your press. It's not
Yeah.
like a Sam Allardyce team, or was it Ranieri had Leicester when they won? Like they're very much was let's get
Yeah.
the striker
Two
in behind.
passes straight in, get it behind. Yeah, get
Yeah,
yeah,
and it didn't matter how you were pressed, they were going to do that. In fact, they weren't pressed, right? Because they were going to do that. That's not this scenario. And I think
no.
on any other day, Arteta is absolutely one of the best coaches and is extremely flexible. It seems here that he's dug in. Was that because he's going up against his mentor? Did he want to prove that the student had become the master? I don't know,
Yeah,
mate.
yeah, who knows? Yeah. Could
But
the six have done any more, Paddy? The two sixes, and I'm not saying they could, by the way, because they're being screened by four players, but I just can't work out if you're going to play out then, who's because there wasn't much movement between Rice and Zubimendi, and obviously they're brilliant players and they're good in these situations. Zubimendi likes the ball under pressure, he can receive it under pressure, but it's not like I'm not saying he doesn't want the ball, but he seems lost. He's like he's just hiding behind Haaland. I don't think he's hiding behind Haaland, by the way, but he's just trying to. I don't know how you'd be able to break that line of four without it being a risky pass, and whether they are, it looked like Arsenal weren't moving and showing up for the ball, but I don't think there was many pace him to go to. I don't know where you'd move to create the space.
yeah, I think you hit it there with you said there's not much room for that pass. It'd be really nice if we had a bird's eye view, but if you look at the left player, the furthest left player, sorry, get my mouse. If you look at here to here, well, if you trace the line across the 18 and then the grass, he's a whole like grass cutting inside. And if you trace this one back, he's not even near so what do you say they are across there? 20 yards maybe?
Yeah, yeah,
So four players in a 20 yard, there probably isn't as much space as maybe it looks from our angle for these two Arsenal players. So we've been told to come stand here, boss. If a
yeah.
space opens up, we're ready. But I don't know how those two create space. And unless you have them checking in and out. So let's say, is this Saka? Yeah. If Saka was to kind of quickly drop into this space here between the two, Haaland might pinch. And then that might allow this player. Who did you say this was? Sorry, Scott. You're
I think that's
eyesight.
Zubimendi. I think he's that side, isn't he? I think Zubimendi's in there, and then
So
Saka's come back in. Yeah,
if Saka drops in here, he might pull both of these players towards him, and that might open a space for Zubimendi to receive that ball there. But they don't. There's no dynamic movement from these two. There's no dynamic move. I mean, could you pinch the fullback across and have a back three? Could you have the
I know
fullback
this sounds boring. I
charge?
know this, but I think it's actually quite exciting. I wonder what happened if they just
I
played the ball
do.
to Yeah, done it. Or play the ball to Kepa now and leave it at Kepa's feet and make him a centre back almost. So they've got to go. So someone has to go and just. Oh, well, no, I don't want to watch a 10-minute football game and nobody moves off the pitch. But at some point, Man City are obliged to go and press the keeper. Surely, aren't they? Sure, and that breaks the plan. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they were just staying there for however long it takes. It'd have been quite in a strange way, quite fascinating to see if Gary plays the ball to Kepa now and just says, there you go, and moves out wide, and Kepa's there with the ball and he's got four passing options then, but to get those, obviously one person's got to break that Man City four. My gut feeling is they wouldn't have broke the Man City four, would have still stayed there. I think they would stay there for as long as they had to until Arsenal blinked first, but it would have been interesting to see. And then there was moments, weren't there, where it almost went like that, didn't it?
Yep.
But Arsenal did blink first, and they played the centre back because we've taken Kepa out of the game now, so Kepa's not an advantage to us, And Gabby's looks a bit lost, and if you're going to play the ball out further to the right, that's no advantage anyway. He's going square and making the pitch even smaller. I wonder if Kepa would have been the right pass there and just trust him with his feet to at least fight that first press and then play around it.
And I think a really interesting thing that is maybe more part of the meta game, and you're not going to necessarily hear about on Lee Dixon commentary, right? Because he's in it. But from a coach's standpoint, who is under the most cognitive or mental stress when you've got 2 minutes of this standoff, right? And
Yeah,
it might be repeated 10 times in the game because Man City's front four can afford to make a mistake. It's not necessarily going to cost them. Whereas the other end, Arsenal, if they slip up once here, you've now got four absolute beasts bearing
yeah,
down on you. And they must be aware of that when they're holding the ball because I think most teams can hold the ball for 10, 15 seconds. You're touching it for a couple, you give it off to the next guy, you're looking for that space. Those two centre backs and that keeper were just stood with the ball waiting
yeah.
to hit, right? So eventually you wonder if that game is played over like a 3 hour period or something. Like, did they just start to make mistakes in the
Yeah.
latter second half? Did they start to make mistakes? Did they start to get jittery, nervous? Like, it's just too much cognitive or mental stress. It's not like being a striker where you make a mistake. Oh, I'll get
The
another
next chance
go.
will come along. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We wonder that, mate. But yeah,
Do you
different.
really again, I think we sort of play out a bit longer, see what happens after, so we can just get a bit more of a flavour of it.
Yeah. So watch the City players shifting, right? Um, and now look, let's go back very slightly, but the player on the left there did think about jumping for a second, didn't he? And restrained himself.
But yeah,
Haaland's
yeah, yeah,
dropping through. And now you look at it, and now there is a moment where they can press. Oh, I meant to pause it there. My bad. Sorry, let me go back. Um, because the Arsenal fullback here, the midfielder has slid across. Saka's being screened. This player is on
yeah,
Zubimendi. This player's a free defender at this point. So
yeah.
he's a free defender. He's allowed to jump because what options does he really have at the moment? He can't play there.
No,
Can't play
the
there.
only thing here is if he could punch a pass into Saka, who does a round the corner pass out to the right wing there. But he ain't on really, is he? I mean, that's a big
Not
ask. I can't.
really. And
It's like he's
again,
not on, is it?
we talked about our angle here not being as good as a bird's eye angle. But if you follow those grass lines, see where Saka's feet are here.
Yeah,
I mean,
Haaland's there, isn't he? Haaland
right
screened
there.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. He's screening it. So
yeah,
blocked, 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 sort of man to man here, man to man here. It's fun. It's a hybrid, right? Because it's man to man when the player's in front of you, but it was zonal before that. They were all
yeah,
just occupying and screening. But I think you have to say that these two central players are man to man on the two midfield players behind them, and then these two players here just shift off and tuck in as it goes across. But the only option I really see for this player now, I mean, if you see the same as me, Scott, is back to Kepa.
yeah. Back wasn't it? Yeah, yeah. Obviously, Gabby's gone outside anyway, so maybe that's it. But also, I think then it's like he doesn't want to do that, does he? He's looking to play forward still, but then he realizes he
Oh,
can't, and it's almost like a panic pass back. It's not part of right. We sucks me now. We can break down the left hand side. It doesn't look like a composed pass back. It's like, well, I've got nothing else, and I better go this way quickly. Maybe it's just a sense, but that's what it felt like. If you watch what Sleeper does, and Sleeper's a good football player. He's good on the ball, but this isn't a composed back pass. This is like, oh, we've got no options. Let's just put it back here and try again and see what happens.
that's right. If we roll it forward, um, there we go. If we roll it forward now, right, it's a little close there, wasn't it? And you
Yeah,
watch that.
exactly. It wasn't composed, was it? And it's like,
Oh,
well, okay. And look at the force. Look at the discipline. The force City attack. Just they just covering out, not
yeah,
getting the ball, just covering the spaces. Simeone again, just there, just covering the angle, cutting it off, isn't it? Just so disciplined for attacking players. Like Holland hasn't left
yeah.
that square really, and he wants to score goals, but he's just done his job. Like just sitting in that space, happy to do it. This bit for the team. I don't think that should be undervalued, should it? When you're, you know, you get sort of slack Holland for whatever, like, lots of reasons, but he's a team player, isn't he? He's going to do his job for the team, and that's a great example that all those front four, really, to be fair to him, but just disciplined and organised and just being asked what you've been told to do, like to help out in the best intent for your team and just suffocating the opposition, which is what they're doing to Arsenal.
And we talked a little bit about like the mental load, cognitive load, or maybe the fear. Call it the fear of messing up here for Arsenal. Well, after all that work, they're back to exactly where they were a minute ago.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
exact same positions. So
yeah,
you must wonder, like, this the player on the ball now must be going, oh my god, and
yeah.
that starts to affect them. Like, I can't get
Bit of
out.
panic, bit of frustration, yeah. And if you're City, you're thinking, "Hey, we got this. It's working. Getting
Yeah.
ourselves recharged, getting energy back up again,
Oh,
being patient. Our defenders doing nothing. They're just relaxing,
yeah.
getting comfortable, getting their energy back, staying focused. Yeah,
100%. The
it's a lot.
psychological battle there is in Man City's favour here in a really important area of the field. So, yeah, we'll roll it forward a bit more. I think it's a little bit more of the same, but we can talk about some
It's
more
good. It's
nuance.
good to see the fact that it is the same though. I think it's good to see what's the solution. You see, that's my pass. I think now I think Kepa should wait now till he gets pressed. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but I think this now it's who's gonna. I wouldn't even if I was Kepa, I would just wait until that first player comes out and
Yeah.
that's your trigger. I don't think he does he? I think he plays before then. I might be wrong, but I
No,
don't think he
for
waits.
your to your point, Scott, if either of the two central players press now, either
Yeah,
of them, Haaland and I can't see who that is, you've got a very easy central penetrating pass there. And then you might say that the receiver's going to get instant pressure from this midfield three, but it's a third man. Right? I think you talked
yeah,
about that at the beginning.
absolutely.
You've got this to there, right? You've got that
Yeah,
L-shaped third man pass, or it goes the other way. It goes there to there to there, right?
absolutely.
You are out, or I mean, we could even go still a third man pass. We go from here to here to here, right? And the
You
fullback.
can create a diamond. If they break that line, you can create a diamond to play around, can't you? Whether way you can do it, you could even use Saliba and you could play quickly off him. Then you'd have a 2v1 in Arsenal's favour off Saliba. If Haaland goes, for example, if you can get the ball out to Saliba before Haaland cuts that angle off, then suddenly the guy in front of Saliba has got two Arsenal players around him to try and cover that, and you should be able to get out of that. You know, not easy, but you should be able to get out of it. But it requires one of the Man City players to go and break that line.
And if you look at this player here, sorry, mate, you might have just said this. He's already on that sort of half turn where he's anticipating being the third man,
Yep.
receiving, playing forward.
Yep.
And if
Yep.
he does receive playing forward here, let's say that pass takes a second to get there. Okay, and that gives this player a second to get to about there. He's still got 10 yards of space, playing facing forward, nice cushioned ball back. But City ain't jumping.
No. Now,
Great.
what does Kepa do now? I can't quite remember. Does he stay with
Yeah.
the ball, or does he actually? Does he? I don't. I think he makes the pass first. You see, I think he's just
Yeah.
wait. You see, I don't.
And
That's
then
not helped us. That's not helped
you've got,
us.
hasn't you back with that? I mean,
Just cut off a little bit. Yeah, just
now
cutting the pass off.
this is at least they've broken that stalemate. But let's look what happens. City. Oh, mate, look at the communication. Look at Forgive me, I can't remember this player's name. Watch him beckon the guy on. Just watch what he does as the press is broken. Now watch his
Balls and
gestures.
across.
Who is he talking to? Look, tell him to come back and get on him. And now they're back into it.
Yeah,
Reestablish that
that's
four.
it. Relaxed it again. Yeah,
It's
back
not
again.
as
All discipline.
tight there, but you can see it, right? And they're back at it, back to work.
Yeah, and once or twice, so you can see the City getting a bit tempted, going to go a little bit, and
Yeah.
who's going to be the most patient. But to be fair, they stay disciplined, don't they? Um,
Now, I
yeah,
think this cut inside is what was missing all along, right? We've tried to rely just on passing, but look how he nearly breaks the pressure just by a little cut inside. And I think if Arsenal were better placed behind Haaland, you might have been able to get a little ball through there, but they weren't, and they're back into it again.
yeah.
That line of four reestablishes itself, and then pressure, frustration gives it away.
I
And
always
that's
think,
it.
Pay, that if you're going to play predictable football, and I think, and to be fair, I'd say City play predictable football a lot of the time, and Arsenal try and do that because they think they're good at what they do. But if you're going to be predictable, I think you've got to be quick, haven't you? You've got to play fast. You can't be predictable and slow. You can be unpredictable, which is great, and be clever, but you can't be predictable and slow. And I think by
No.
City making that change in that kind of like a 4-2-4, it slowed down Arsenal's thought processes, which made them predictable and slow, for a
Mhm.
period of time, which then created the pressures and everything else. And even the goals, I think, even though they weren't directly necessarily from that, although they kind of were in many ways, it was a psychological suffocation and pressure that led
Yeah.
to I don't blame the keeper making a mistake. I don't think it was keeper's fault at all. That goal was always going to come at some point from somewhere. You could feel it. It happened to be that one thing. But if you let Man City play in around your final third, either with or without the ball, if they're controlling it with or without the ball, you're gonna be in trouble at some point because they're too good. And it kind of felt like it was coming. It's a great clip.
Yeah, I think it kind of shows a little battle within a battle, game within a game there that Man City won. I think it has a psychological weight. And I know sometimes the pure football fan, oh, shut up, right? But there is when you've got 100,000 people, you're on big money, you're trying to fight for your place. World Cup's coming around the corner, you're in a final, blah 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 blah, and you've got two of the best teams in the world going at it. To be Arsenal in that moment, to be those three back players, two including the keeper, and to not be able to break out with regularity or consistency has to weigh heavy on your mind. When you talked about a minute ago, Scott, like, oh, maybe there was an out pass there, but you've just had 2 minutes of an absolute battering. You can't.
Yep.
are you confident and sharp and on it to fizz that ball through a 7-yard gap? Or are you
And
looking at
it's a
those
cup
four
final,
players?
right? It's a cup. Let's not kid ourselves. They still know it's a cup final. It's Wembley. It's a big thing. You know, it may not be the Champions League final, but it's still a cup final. And that, like, so what Miga's sitting at home saying, "Oh, you can play that part," but you know, it's different, isn't it? You know, and yeah.
And
Well, look,
when you're
let's
when
go
you're
on. Sorry,
City
Paddy.
as well, no, you're fine. When you're City, so I think I talked about briefly that the Spanish coaches would rather die than go away from their game model. I think you saw that with Pep here, because in a cup final, it's very easy to sit back, low block, and try and nick it. Sit back, low block, penalties. Right? He's gone. No, we're gonna go the other way, and then
Yeah.
an extra 20%. I'm going to add a fourth player up there. So he's not just thinking about the defensive moment, he's thinking about the positive transition. Well, eventually Arsenal will slip up there, and when they do, we've got four coming at you. I think
It
it's
was like a high-low block, wasn't it? I know that's counterintuitive, but it's like it wasn't like a high press when you face. It was like a
there's no
high
press,
block.
is
We're
there?
going to
Yeah,
block you
high
from
block.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
like there you go. There's our back four almost. You know, in your attacking, your defensive third. It was, yeah, it was brilliant. Well, look, we know. Look, it's great looking at this stuff because the challenge I think now for us for the end of the podcast is just to pick up a few things there. That, let's be honest, we're not all Man City or Arsenal, and we're not all Pep and Arteta, and we haven't all got like elite football players that play with £400 footballs on beautiful surfaces. Some of us just have under 14s, and we train once a week and play on a Saturday. What's the takeaways that that us kind of everyday part-time coaches that do it voluntarily can take out of looking at things, let's play from your point of view? I guess A, what's the takeaways, and then B, how might you put some of this stuff into some of your sessions without getting carried away? Because the last thing we're preaching here is, right, go and get your under eights now, and then do a shielding practice for 45 minutes with them, because they'll love that, won't they? Out of possession, just shielding the ball. Of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
we got to be careful when we do this, because I guess it's more principles maybe than anything else. But you need to answer this one better than, because you're answer better than I can. But what we looking at here, and how can coaches embed that maybe in a fun, realistic way for the age and stage for the players that they've got?
Yeah, a great point about the U8s not wanting to do shielding practice and screening practice. Of course, they don't. And I wouldn't recommend that for even, I mean, unless you're in an environment where you winning something means something financially, maybe, or get you into an academy. I don't think you want to work on that. It's not fun, is it? But can you set up practices that encourage the transitional moments, right? Can you reward your, let's say we're working with Man City. Let's say we're working with the team out of possession, right? It's what age group are you coaching at the moment, Scott? Remind me.
Under 14s. Although
So
if I think they're under 18s, but under 14s, not
under
all of them, to
30,
be fair.
yeah,
It's
under
that age
30.
group, but the under 14s always a fun age group. But yeah, no, they're good lads. But yeah, under 14s, Paddy.
I'm sure they're great lads. I'd love to come when I'm home, mate. At some point, I'd love to come over and watch you coach and have a chat with them. I'd love that. I mean that. But they're not going to respond very well to, like you said, 45 minutes of table football movements across the screen like that, across the pitch like that. But could you set up could you set up that 7v sorry, what was it, 7v4 practice? 100%. Could you incentivize pressing behavior, and maybe even more than pressing behavior? Sorry, not pressing behavior. Could you incentivize that screening behavior? Could you then, I mean, what was City's end goal? It was to probably frustrate Arsenal into making a mistake, capitalize off that mistake, and then positively transition. Well, guess what? Arsenal are great at holding the ball under pressure. They're multi-million pound players. Your U13 centre backs and goalkeeper, they might cough that up after four passes. So you're probably not going to get into that scenario where you've got four screening players not touching the ball for 2 minutes at a time, right? Your centre back is, and maybe you reduce the space to encourage that. Maybe you play within the 18 or just a touch bigger, right? You don't play that big area we had highlighted. You reduce that. But I think you can easily coach shifting and passing off players. I think you can easily coach, can we screen behind by adding two little Arsenal, sorry, your age group, two little players behind that screen, and you're incentivizing your back three. If you get the ball through to them, that's worth as much as a goal is to the other team going the other way, or something, or more so, right, or whatever. um, you can absolutely recreate that if that's important to your game model. And it might well be, because your boys are getting older now. I mean, they're on a full 11v11 field. There is space everywhere. If you don't manage it properly, you get played through, you get played over, you get played around. But would you focus on that for a whole session? No, of course not. Would you run it like a line drill where there's not even necessarily a ball involved all the time? No, you'd have to make that positional game, or positional or possessional game hybrid, incentivize and reward certain behaviors. And I think at some point you'd have to reward your um, screening players with something, right? More time on the ball, right, swap roles now, or you get 3 points if you win it and score, or you get 3 points if you if the back line don't connect within 30 seconds, that's 3 points for you guys. That kind of stuff, right? Um,
Yeah.
and make the conditions more amenable to their success, and otherwise they're just mannequins at that point. And you're right, mate. When you've got once a week with boys, all the energy in the world, right, you can't have them doing that. It doesn't translate. It doesn't translate.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing to be conscious of, is to recognise the fact that we obviously, a lot of people watch the Premier League or watch elite football, whether it's Serie A or Bundesliga or whatever else it might be, and you know that almost becomes like the default aim, the objective. It's like you've got to recognise, you know, who you're coaching, how much time you have the
Mm-hmm.
players, you know, what you've got, and I think it's okay to look at parts of that game and say, do you know what, how can we pinch some of this stuff? Because that's that we see that on a Saturday or Sunday in our football world. But the art then for the coaches that are coaching at that level, like the grassroots level, is to say, well, how do I get this to my players without it feeling like I'm trying to run an elite, you know, Man City first team session or under 18 session, because that probably isn't going to transfer across as well. And exactly like you said, there's games and ways, and then incentivizing them at games to work on some of those principles rather than actual, you know, the patterns of play and be more specific. Just principles are probably a great way of going about it.
How many times a week do you get to train with your boys, Scott? I know you mentioned once a week earlier, but were you just generalising, or that is your
No,
scenario?
we do. So we get them. We get them. It's funny because you know that we have a pretty strong Saturday team. You have the JPO in the States, don't you? Now I think it's got bigger over there, but it's getting bigger over there. But
The
we
what?
we have the Junior Premier League in England, and it's
Ah,
and it's
it's
kind of like it's supposed to be. Is it different? Is it like it's so big over where you guys are? But the JPL is supposed to be in many ways like this, you know, an enhanced version of what was Sunday League football. You know, I
okay.
don't know that it's much different these days, to be fair. But what you tend to find is the JPL seems to have boys and girls, but players that have kind of a combination of maybe two or three grassroots Sunday teams kind of come together. So they tend to be quite strong, in inverted commas again. You know, they're strong, it's all relative. But they're the kind of kids that for the stronger JPL teams are kind of full of the players that, you know, are either borderline academy, so, you know, want to get signed, might get signed in that kind of space, keen to get signed, or maybe just come out. So they're a decent level. But my point is, they're probably also playing for a grassroots Sunday team and training for them. They're probably doing something else at either a regional development centre, whether it's Spurs, QPR, or something around this way, you know, Watford or something. So they're already training probably 3 times a week with in other environments and playing at least another game a week. So, you know, having them once a week for us is more than we can probably ask for. If we, unless we were like one of the pro clubs and we could get them for 2 sessions a week, I get them for an hour and a half once a week. And even then, you know, often, you know, like given the age they're at, you've kind of got one or two that'll be out with injury because they're 14 and they, you know, it's a physical game. One or two that might have a game for their like, you know, that are maybe playing for a professional club, maybe the development side, not necessarily signed yet, but they've got a game for them. Or if they've been offered an opportunity to go and play for, say, someone like Arsenal in their shadow squads, they might train on Thursday. So, you know, we don't. It's a weird thing. We don't get much of them, which means, I guess my point is, you can only cover so much, and you to work on whole team things when you've got heart, you know, you haven't always got your whole team there, is almost impossible. And you've got to think clever ways to coach the kids you got for that session, because it might be a different bunch to the next session and a different bunch, not completely different, but you might have three or four in, three or four out, and then you've got to maybe sit there and deliver a team that, you know, developing players, which is the fundamental point of what we're trying to do here, which is can't be, and developing teams, but also the kid ourselves, we want to win games because the boys want
Yeah.
to win games, the parents definitely want to win games. I quite like winning games, to be honest with you. So trying to do all that and embed some of this stuff is like, oh my god, you know, it ain't easy, right?
So no, so okay, so that's good information. So what you said about these boys do train, they just train elsewhere. That might change my answer a little bit, Scott. And I don't know that it's the didactic or developmentally correct approach, right? That I don't know that there is one correct approach. In the US, you get a lot of pushback on coaching anything that is outside of individual player development. So, like patterns, pressing, counter pressing. They there's a big strong belief here across the majority of football. Now, remember, the majority of football here is not high level because football here is massive. I don't have the stats, but I would not be surprised if it was in the top two or three participation sports. There's way more players here than there are back home, and there's way more girls play than there are here back home. Varies from state to state, but I think because the majority of players here, the majority of players anyway don't make it as professional, but there's more players here in total that will never make it to a high level. They will never make it off of a recreational
Yeah.
team. Why would you do anything other than one player, one ball, right? Because some of these kids they'll only touch the ball with you once a week. So I'm not necessarily talking about them. You're not necessarily talking about those players. I'm probably talking about your level, what we might call travel here, or high level travel and
Yeah.
above. So we have the academy system here. They call it MLS Next. Um, Maybe a different podcast to go into it in detail, but the facilities here and some of the caliber of coaching in the MLS Next, honestly, mate, I would suggest is as good, if not better, than a lot of the sort of I can't remember what they call the top Premier League academy now. Is it Cat One or whatever you call it? But
Yeah, you
if
got
you
cat
come just
three,
out,
twos, and ones. The ones you're at Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City's kind of things, and then you got your twos and threes. Yeah,
yeah, if you assume that the ones at Arsenal and Chelsea and Man United are the best academy coaches available, that might not be the case. But if you assume La Masia is the best academy coaching available, Bayern Munich, I would say that there are coaches in the US that are 100% at that level, American and non-American. The
yeah,
facilities at some of these professional clubs are amazing. When players get to that level, sorry, the point in that story was when the players get to that level, you're not having to teach them to dribble. You're not having to teach them how to pass and receive. They're out of the box, ready to go players at that point. I think, can you work on a screening session? Because denying central penetration is a playing principle, right? As important as many,
absolutely.
many others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think probably you end up with two different paradigms there, depending on who you're working with. So your players, if they're getting 3 practices a week from elsewhere, some of them in shadow squad, they're all able to pass, receive, dribble, shoot, scan. That I think you probably can spend some time, especially if you don't get the same group consistently every week. Well, maybe all you need to do is teach game model principles at that point.
I was about to say exactly that. I mean, I think that's the secret recipe to this is, and I could be completely wrong, but it's exactly that. I think if you say like, what are our game principles, and you have maybe three or four in that possession, and obviously they'll if you dig into those, there's a lot of information deeper inside those, but you haven't got to share those. As long as you know it as the coach, then every week, if you're focusing on one of those principles, or maybe more than one, you can't go too far wrong, can you? So, for example, with the screening one now, like I'm trying to think, we have build, exploit, devastate as our principles in possession, and we have press, control, recover. Control, press, recover, CPR out possession. So this is about control. So that's a principle. So this is we're working on controlling the play. How do we control the play stay boys without the ball? I don't even touch it, but can we make them make a mistake without even touching the ball? And they're like, what? Let's do it. It's 10 minutes. Let's give it a go. I don't obviously you're going to touch the ball, but I don't want you that you'll get a point for them making a mistake without you even touching it. So can you force
Yeah,
them to play backwards or give a free kick or give a throwaway, sorry, or something, make a mistake, but you've not even had to touch the ball to be organised. And I think your principles there can dictate that, and suddenly it becomes fun because it's a game, it's a challenge, and they're doing all these things now, without actually being told, right, you must stand there, keep your line of four, don't break the line, stay there, don't like there's no don'ts or do's. It's just like the game now, or the principle when the game associated will dictate the actions, and then you can refer to that on your match day and say, when we do on Thursday about that, how we control without winning the ball, that's something we want to try and do. Look how good they are playing out. So let's just think about how we can sit back and just control spaces. What do we do on Thursday? And you link it into that without getting too carried away about, like you say, patterns of play and making it too much about a team theme, because there is question marks over how important a team is. And I think in many ways, grassroots coaches have the toughest job because we're trying to do both. We generally are trying to
Oh,
develop players
yeah,
and we are trying to win games. I think an academy, if you're a Cat One academy, I know they want to win games too. Don't get me wrong, of course they
yeah.
do. But that's not. They're not trying to get a whole team in from under 17s into the first team. They want one or two stars for their team and to sell three or four on. So they're not bothered about if they lose an academy game. In fact, it's better to lose games sometimes. I think in the academy system because you look like you're doing things the right way. Then if you win every week, you're probably not doing the right thing. So I think it's hard. But as coaches, we need. I guess I'm thinking about the players now. As coaches, it's so important that we think about the players, and get that balance right because you don't want crappy sessions where they're boring, do you? Particularly an out possession session, and you don't want to make it all about your ego and your game model above actually the team fun and the individual development. And I guess that's a challenge, isn't it? We just got to keep fighting with.
There's what you might call training paradigms. There's something called tactical periodization and something called structured training, and they talk about emotional, volitional, socio-affective, and things like that. And I think you have to do your best to. So what they say is, all not only should all moments of the game be present in every training session, so in possession, out possession, positive transition, negative transition, but when you talk about God, I won't be able to remember all of them now, but so in Paco Cirulo, the former head of methodology at Barcelona, he's got like 8 human characteristics that must appear in every session. But imagine like the old graphic equalizers on the
Yeah,
uh, stack system that you and
dial
I
up,
had.
dial down. Yeah,
You dial them up, dial them down, depending on day of the week, depending on proximity to the previous game, the next game, depending on the session. But very hard to make a screening session fun for everyone. But then maybe the next activity is just a 5v5 shooting game, right? And you prefer the players that just had to stand there like mannequin. And it's not, you and I are never going to run a session where they're just standing there. But maybe that's the most boring session you run, and maybe they are involved in the most boring part of the most boring session you run. Well, then those 4 players in the next activity get unlimited touches.
brilliant
One of
point.
them's captain, and it's
Yeah,
just they don't
yeah,
sub out. If you've got a team come on, come off, you're always on, guys. You're the neutrals, and you use that graphic equalizer and you push it back up to an 11 on the sort of
yeah.
social effective stuff. Um, just a
Love that,
suggestion.
Paddy. I
I,
think
I
that's a
really like
great
that
tip.
thing. I really like that thing you said a minute ago, mate, about sounded like your progression principles. You say control, exploit, devastate. Was it?
No,
Did I get that?
so in possession we have build, exploit, devastate, which spells bed. So we say put the position to bed when we've got the ball, like build, exploit, devastate. And we've had this since we were kids. So like we wanted something that worked from like under 8s up to like under 18s ideally, and it kind of does. All we do is add layers on it. So we want to devastate first. If we can't devastate, can we exploit spaces? If we can't exploit, we need to build, don't we? It's just well, you do it anyway. Teams do it. It's not like we just give it a name. So that's what we do, and we have principles around that. And then our possession, we have control, press, recover because it's CPR, so it's emergency, right? So you've got to perform CPR. We've lost the ball, so we control the play first before we put the pressure on. Then we recover the ball, and that's what we try and do. So again, and every team does the same thing, but like now, okay, how do we do it? So we have certain things we do when we're trying to control the play or put pressure on that we want to play. It's not complicated. Like if I can understand it, it's not complicated, and like it just means that when I'm doing my sessions, if I'm not working on one of those things or more, it's usually one or more. And obviously, if one team's doing the build, the other team's probably doing the control, because it's counter, that's the
Yeah,
idea of it. They go against each other, but I'll only focus on one, or the other team's doing the other one. But it just means that the boys understand it and then they know this inside out and we can refer to it. So I'm analyzing, if I'm watching the game, like what have we not done well in that first half where we haven't controlled the play very well, we've not exploited space for then they'll say to me, what do we do? Okay, there we go then. So let's work there. That's, we know what we need to do. We might not get it right and we don't always get it right, but we know what we're trying to do at least. And it's a
yeah,
common language, and it's all football related and it's all trying to bring things together. And if you miss a week, 1 week, because you've been playing for Arsenal or something else, we haven't changed the vocabulary. Do you know what I mean? We still can relate back to the session. If they weren't there, they will still get, oh, you worked on exploit. Okay, I get that. I know what you did then. Even though I wasn't there, I know what you'd have been doing and the principles around that. So it's build, exploit, devastate, control, press, recover.
I like that, mate. That's great. I think any mnemonic device that helps simplify and remember is good for kids.
It's got to be simple for me, Paddy. Otherwise, I get lost.
Same.
But on that one, actually, the boys quite like more difficult things now. I did my B license last year. I think I spoke before, but actually, I did some of the obviously some sessions with them because you have quite a lot of sessions with them. So, and they actually quite like the more technical detail. I think they were. I mean, they did. I think part of it's just the fact that it was a bit different to just game based condition stuff, which we've done a lot of since they were little, which I think is brilliant. And
Yeah.
I don't think they know anything different. So, we've done a few more technical a few more stop stand still sessions. But your point about actually, and I know one or two of those were dry. And what I didn't do was your great tip there. Actually, what I could have done is maybe had a 10-minute part of that session where it was just to make sure whatever else I did, that was fun, high energy, and engaging. So and actually now thinking, oh God, I could have done 40 minutes of that stuff rather than 50, and had 10 minutes doing like another really good fun game. And actually, they would have got the learning still, but still had the buzz. It was okay. But I think to make sure you're doing those, like you said, the dials. And that's a great tip. You haven't got to be locked into one theme for one whole session, and that's it. Regardless, get fun in there somehow. Make sure you get. I mean, it should be fun the whole time, shouldn't it? Really. But if you have to dial the fun down for a good reason, then let's make sure we double it up before the session's over to make up for it.
Yep. No, I think
Great
that's
tip,
absolutely
Paddy.
right. Absolutely right. It's
Well, look, we
hard
said
to
we'd do an hour. I think we're on for nearly an hour and a half, which is about typical for us in our chat. I don't know where time goes, mate. But
yeah.
anything, I'm going to let you go and say thank you very much. And like I say, we won't have episode 3 that long between the 2 and 3, so that'll be soon. But just before we finish off this one, anything that I've not asked or not covered, or anything that you didn't get a chance to say that you want to mention
Oh
before we let you go?
no,
There might not be, but I don't want to. I don't want to.
God no, mate. I think we do a very thorough. So I mean, just for people at home that don't necessarily know how we put this together, Scott and I chat. I find a clip that I have access to. I send it over, and then we go through it. I have my preconceptions about that clip, and then Scott comes in with all his great questions, and that's why what should be a 5-minute conversation becomes an hour and a half, because the game is so complex, especially at 11v11. There are games within games within games within games, and it takes like 2 sets of eyes to pull it. And I imagine if we had someone else on, or one of my colleagues, one of your, you'd probably be here for 3 hours, because
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack. And obviously, I've come at it from I mean, if you say I'm a positional play based coach, you wouldn't be wrong. And then you look at it from this standpoint, you're coaching U13s, I think U14s, I think you said, but you've also
Yep.
been coaching them since. And all of a sudden, it just spirals, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
I,
Well,
no,
I think it's a great space because, I'm not coaching little ones now for the first time. I'm not working in the elite game, and I never will be. But when you're in the middle space, it's quite a lot because you're almost putting the two together now, aren't you? We watch a lot of professional football, and
yeah,
some of our boys have gone now and they've signed for professional clubs, so and they're getting to the age where they're close now. My older boys, lot are, they're knocking, the boys that got signed and knocking the door now, under 18s and whatever else. And so it's not a million miles away. And it's funny, you realise, the stuff you're talking about, it is the link between under sixes playing their first little Sunday league game and the professional game is not a million miles apart. But we
no,
have to make sure that we recognise the difference, don't we? And having the chats with Paddy is brilliant. 'Cause I think what you do superbly is, like you say, you'll take a clip, and we'll talk about it. But it's that trick between recognising what's going on at that level, but also then how we can, relate that back in an appropriate way to the players that we coach, so we don't get carried away with ourselves, and we remember that football's supposed to be a game and fun and enjoyable for everybody. And I think we can lose that sometimes. We overanalyze or we over focus on results. So hope that's what this has been about today, mate. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again. And thank you for being the expert in the room. And I can ask all my silly questions. It works well.
I don't know about expert, mate, but I do love chatting football with you. Funny enough, I think I said this to you before, working in football here, I get less chance to chat about it and less chance to watch it, because you're often dealing with the problems around players and parents. Sometimes you're spending more time doing that. I'd say often you're spending more time doing that than you are working on your craft. So I always appreciate the chance to chat with you.
All right, my pleasure. Absolutely. Well, look, we will get the next one out in a few weeks. This will be out hopefully at the start of next week. But Paddy, mate, great catching up. Thank you so much for all the work you put into this, and looking forward to the next episode, buddy.
Same here, mate.
This episode was brought to you in association with our friends at Soccer Coach Weekly. Established since 2006, Soccer Coach Weekly is a leading source of inspiration and advice for all grassroots coaches. Join thousands of youth soccer coaches just like you, saving time and effort in their goal of having the most effective, enjoyable and successful coaching journey for them and their players. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode.